But I'm going to give you what I think is one of the most important things that new artists, new producers don't do often enough. And this mistake number 5 is not experimenting with tempos and tunings and keys to find the right one for the performers and for that song. I come to this originally from the context of working with a lot of bands, full bands tracking in the studio together, or at least getting basics in the studio together. And I'd often find when they were having a problem with a certain song, or a certain song wasn't coming together right, just changing the tempo by 2 BPM or 4 BPM could make a huge difference in making a song that just wasn't working to one that was completely gelled. And this is not to say that a song can only work at one tempo. You can often have 2 or 3 wildly different tempos work for a song. Like you have a down-tempo version of a song and an up-tempo version of it, and they can both be amazing. Case in point, Guns N' Roses' Welcome to the Jungle. I saw a band called Chibo Mato play that song live. I think it must have been the early 2000s. And they played a super slow, down-tempo, like half-speed version of the song. And it was amazing and so much better than the actual song, in my humble opinion. But it's not just about these wildly different rearrangements of things. It's any song, any particular arrangement has a tempo range that could work. But on any given day, the artists are really going to lock in at best at a specific tempo. And it's not 144 BPM, it's 146 BPM. And when we do it at 144, it falls apart. Or there's this range where it could work anywhere from, 100 BPM to 118 BPM. And we just really need to narrow that down substantially and find out what area it really wants to be in. And we might want to try things that are further away as well. And the more you do this, the more you'll get a sense for jumping there immediately. And you'll say, this feels a little rushed. If we slow it down by 2 BPM, all of a sudden, you're all going to feel on top of it. You're going to feel like you're really commanding this song, that this song is yours. But right now, it feels like you're rushing through it and you're trying to keep up with it. And that's not what we want. It's taking away your power, or vice versa. But the more you experiment with that kind of thing, the better and the sooner this is going to come together. I understand that if you're working on electronic music, this can potentially be slightly more complicated if you've already committed your sounds and you're not just working with MIDI anymore. If you're working with like sample-based music, and then you're going to have to kind of stretch things, and the tone and timbre of things are going to change a little bit. But it can be worthwhile to, even in electronic context and sample-based context, of changing the tempo slightly to see if the singer really sits in a better pocket that way, even if the singer is the only live instrument in there. But tunings is another thing that's big, especially for singers. Can they really command this song in the register in which it's written? Or does moving it up a key or down a key dramatically change how much more authoritative and comfortable the performance is? That can be really big. This is something that seasoned pros think about immediately in the pre-production process before they ever get into a studio to do final takes, but it's something that a lot of beginning producers and artists do not think about at all. So I want you to be in that seasoned pro camp of, we're not even going to figure out this tempo thing and this tuning thing when it's time to record. This is part of the pre-production process. And we've tried a few of them with the performer who's actually going to perform it before we've decided on, and then before we're recording it for real. I get this idea of tuning and trying different keys is harder for bands where you're playing a guitar or bass, drums, keyboards, and you've got to like learn the part with new fingerings now. And I get that can be difficult for people. But if you're glued to a certain singer and you're not doing that singer justice by performing it in this key, that's totally something that you should be open to discovering and potentially reworking a song if you have one singer who is the singer, who is going to be performing this song as part of your repertoire and as part of your recorded library of music. Man, these are just a handful of the mistakes that I have made again and again that eventually I stopped making. And when I stopped making each one of these mistakes, towards the end of the period when I was recording and producing, my recordings and productions got way better. way better to the point where people thought I was really good at mixing. So I started to mix more. But it wasn't actually that I had gotten really good at mixing. I'd gotten better at recording and producing and getting things right better before the mix stage that made my mixes seem so much better. And then because my mixes seemed so much better, I got into the stage where I started mixing other people's work and mixing for other people who record and produce, and then all of a sudden being confronted with so many of these mistakes again and again and again at the level that I was working at when I first started out mixing. I've since segued into mastering, and that's, I think, my home probably for the rest of my audio life, which I love. Although, I don't know, when I'm an old guy, maybe I'll go back to producing someday and have some fun with that. But I gotta tell you, if I ever do go back to producing or recording, these are gonna be 5 things I make sure I never forget about. If you like that short clip, you might love the full-length video it came from, or you might love one of my full-length courses like Mixing Breakthroughs, Compression Breakthroughs, or Mastering Demystified, guaranteed to improve the way you work or your money back. Hey, if you want something totally for free, we've also got GPU Audio sponsoring this month. Check them out over at gpu.audio/sonic-scoop, where you can get a whole suite of plugins totally for free. Thanks for hanging out with me. See you next time.